You don't hear this a lot, but CM Punk and his return and the way WB brought him back, well, he got defended. The company got defended. Also, Jon Moxley recently shot on AEW, and in this video, I'm going to touch on both of those topics because CM Punk, he's back. He's what everyone wants to talk about, right? And we're going to talk about him because that's just how it is. CM Punk returning at Survivor Series got a lot of people talking. When he originally came back to WB, there was reports of a lot of talent being upset because outside of the main event talent in the men's War Games match, no one knew that he was coming back. They had been told that he is not coming back, and then all of a sudden that night, boom, Punk pops up. Then, coming out of Monday Night Raw, where CM Punk did a lackluster promo, there was reports about how there was good synergy backstage at Raw. The locker room had kind of embraced Punk after he had started to mingle and talk with people, and everything was fine. And then you just have like this mixed reaction, kind of like he had in AEW. Sound familiar? Well, this is something that Mark Henry actually touched upon during a recent episode of Busted Open in regards to the resentment that may come from certain wrestlers in the company that have an axe to grind with Punk. This is what he had to say. There are some people at the top that's not going to be happy because they're going to get less minutes. They're going to have less time for new additions in the company. There's a lot of people that will take their ball and go home. Steve Austin took his ball and went home before. Everyone always comes back. They always realize the business is bigger than me. I don't want to be on the wrong side. The ones that do that, we don't give an S about them anyways. Then he talked about how those, including Ryback, without mentioning him, if you have such an issue. So a little backstory. Ryback went on Twitter the day of Survivor Series and said, if Punk returns at Survivor Series, I will retire from pro wrestling, even though he hasn't worked a match since like 2018, 2019, whatever. Henry had this to say. There are the ones that are like, oh, I'm going to retire if this person comes back. The ones who say, if he's here, I don't want to be here. Take your ball home then, because the business is going to roll and roll and roll and roll with or without you. And it's rightfully so. Henry defending Punk in this regard is brilliant. And the way that he laid it down, or laid it out rather, is brilliant because, as he said, the business goes on. There was a documentary about WrestleMania 19 that came out, like 20 years ago. And it had an interview with Steve Austin talking about his retirement from pro wrestling. And he talked about how he understands that wrestling is a machine. And there's a spoke on the machine, and he's just a spoke on the wheel. And so when you take that spoke off and you put a new one on there, the machine just keeps running and running and running. Okay? He's just a part. He can get replaced because the machine is WB. The machine is pro wrestling. That's what Henry is alluding to here in his regards to CM Punk. And I think that's brilliant. And really just defending the guy, it's like, look, even if you have an issue with him and maybe you're right, you still got to deal with it. Moving on to Jon Moxley, who did make headlines earlier this week when asked about CM Punk's return promo. He's like, you don't want to know what I think. And I'm like, that's hilarious. Anyways, he was speaking with comicbook.com and asked to give his thoughts on the Texas death match between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland. This is what he had to say, which, by the way, got a ton of criticism because of how violent it was. And I understand the criticism of Hangman Page drinking Swerve Strickland's blood. I thought that was a little unnecessary, but whatever. He said this: when it comes to matches like that, that's one small thing that we can do differently than anyone else in this S. That was one thing I remember telling Tony Khan when I first came in. If you're going to put me in one of these matches, be careful what you wish for, because I am not in the business of under-delivering. I'm not spitting some taglines of like, I'm going to crush your skull with my fingers and pull out your eyeballs and all this S, and then we're not going to do it. AEW has been able to consistently deliver on that. I think it's very important for us to always remember where this started in the first place, which was the need in the industry for an alternative. We should always be different. We should always be thinking about what we can deliver that no one else can. Otherwise, we're just another wrestling company of which there have been a million. Not every single match needs to be a chopping each other's heads off. But that's one small thing, and I definitely feel like I've held that up on my end. If you can't be first in the category, create a category in which you can be first. End quote. 100% agree. I think he's spot on with that. I think it's brilliant. Jon Moxley gets it. Jon Moxley gets it. Think about it. TNA, for instance. They tried to be WWE Light for so long. They desperately tried to get WB to the point where they started buying WB stars just to buy them. Go down the list. Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. Right? Booker T. Sting, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Mr. Anderson, MVP, Drew Galloway. Keep going down the list. It didn't work then. It's not going to work in the future. Look at what Eric Bischoff did with WCW for the Monday Night Wars. When he was about to launch, when he really took over the book for WCW, he said that, and he's told this story countless times, some of y'all may remember this. He goes, I took a legal notepad and I did a cons, essentially a pros and cons list, but it's like WCW here, WB here. What does WB do? Well, I'm going to do the exact opposite of that. They're taped, I'll be live. They're cartoonish, I'll be realistic, right? That's what he did. So if you like the WB product, great. Enjoy the WB product. Watch the WB product. Don't expect AEW to be that product. QT Marshall, who recently departed from AEW, or is about to at the start of 2024, there was a report, I think it was from House of Wrestling, could have been from SI. He wanted more entertaining or entertainment-based segments. Tony Khan felt like they should be essentially like New Japan, where there's no build-up, there's no story. Just put on the greatest matches possible. I don't like that. Give me a reason why I should watch this match. Give me a reason why I should care, why I should stop what I'm doing and watch what this is. Why are these two guys fighting? Right? Not every, and by the way, WWE is like 3 times larger than New Japan is. Anywhere. And WWE is about 2 times as big as AEW. If we're talking about ratings, if we're talking about attendance, we're talking about live events, we're talking about gates, we're talking about social media engagement, whatever metric you want to use, they're bigger than AEW. Know where your strengths are, know where your weaknesses are. That's what I would have to say.